Hi, I'm Streaky from Streaky.com. Today I answer your questions from the comments because it's Friday. Hi, I'm Streaky. If you're new here, I'm a mastering engineer. I come on YouTube every day to talk about pro audio equipment, home hi-fi, headphones, review things. I tell you how to get your room sounding better, anything to do with audio. I'm your man. If you like that kind of thing, please subscribe. I've been a mastering engineer 25 years, working on high-end and low stuff and anything in between. So I'm using that experience to pass it on to you so that it might help you hear things in a better way. So today is Friday, so I am answering questions that you've thrown at me during the week from the videos that are in the comments or on Twitter with hashtag #AskStreaky. So on with the first one. It is from Scott Glasgow Music. And he says, ever mastered any orchestral music? What is the difference when mastering music that is more dynamic? As a sub-note, what do you think of the new BX Master Disc? Okay, first question. Orchestral music, yeah, I've done loads and loads of it. I do loads of production music, mastered that for TV and film. I've done various soundtracks and a lot of classical artists. Totally different approach to pop music or any other kind of music that I might master. Mainly because, yes, you've got loads of dynamics. You don't really want to be using your limiters in the same way. You're not kind of pushing everything up to a high level. You're mastering to a lower level, say -10 RMS rather than say -8 or -6 for sort of pop music or house music. So yes, it's very different from even just hitting the limiters because, you know, you've got a lot of harmonics going on with orchestral music, so sometimes you can't use some of the tube gear that you might want to use, so you kind of have to take that approach of how hard you can push stuff into equipment, but then sometimes you can just kind of use that equipment just for colour. So a lot of the times I'm not really pulling things around too much with orchestral stuff. It's more about kind of keeping the dynamics, getting the colour right, clearing it up, maybe putting some air in, because a lot of the time when they've been recorded in either Abbey Road or a nice studio like that, or it's you know, a live recording, then there's going to be a nice room there to bring out and highlight, and with a lot of violins you can bring that out quite nicely. Sometimes you've got to watch when you're mastering classical is that sometimes you get some of those instruments very sharp in the high mids, so you've got to kind of watch that and make sure that you're not adding too much there and it's going to kind of rip your head off when it's going loud. You want things really nice and warm and big in the low end, you know, and it is just about picking out all those finer details of the orchestra. Yeah, it is a kind of different approach. It's not as kind of smash bang wallop. It's a, you know, it's a take your time, listen to it, sit back. A lot of the times you're trying not to do anything because, you know, sometimes it's really well recorded, depends who it is, depends what it's going to. If it's something for TV, you need to get it loud, but not as loud as, say, a fully commercial music, you know, smashing, as I've said. So yeah, totally different approach, different mindset. It takes a while to get your head into how you're doing it, but yeah, I've done plenty of it. Second question, BX Master Disc. I know that Shay, who's been on the videos quite a bit, was shouting about it the other day, saying he liked it. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but I will check it out now you've mentioned it, and I'll probably review it at some point in the future. So on to the next question. It is from D-Cup. His question is, how do you define gain staging? Explain why it's important and how you approach it. Okay, so gain staging is kind of does what it says on the tin. You're kind of adding a little bit of gain at every stage of the process. So the reason why gain staging is really important is because that is how you get things loud. That's the secret for getting things loud. So smashing something into a limiter, it's going to go loud, but it's going to start getting crushed down. So yes, your RMS will go and you'll get a loud mix, but it won't necessarily be a loud and dynamic mix. Now the key to good mastering is to get a dynamic mix and also keep that level loud or louder than somebody else, because everybody wants things loud. Whatever you say, they do. But gain staging is the key to slowly getting that up. Now, most of the time I have to turn things down to get into my analog equipment because you want some space to then build up that gain. Because if you're starting here, you haven't really got far to go to kind of build that sound and that dynamic sound. So yeah, I'll usually turn it down into my equipment and then I'll bump up depending on what I'm using. I might push into some tubes, I might go on the outputs. It depends. Like if you're doing a lot of EQ, then that's obviously adding, you know, dBs here and there into level, and then you've got to adjust everything accordingly to that. So that's why, you know, I always say just pick a few pieces of equipment and get to know them really well, because then you'll know, okay, how do I push into that? How do I get the sound going? So I I know what bits of equipment sound like, so I'll just push those to their limits or where I want them to sound. That sort of builds up the picture to a certain point, so I get it to the max I can hit my ATDs at. I might want to clip into the ATDs depending on the sound I'm going for. Some ATDs like it, some don't, so it depends what you want to do there. So that's another gain stage. And then I'm gain staging out into some limiters and maybe some compression in the box. So again, you're kind of going to your limits on all of them until you get to the point where it all adds together and you get this loud sound that's really dynamic still because you've gain staged it correctly. That's kind of the key to good mastering. So yeah, that's how I use gain staging. To go into detail on each bit of equipment would be overkill and really wouldn't mean much to you. So there's not a lot of point in me doing that. But yeah, check it out yourself and practice. That's all it's down to. Okay, next question number 3 of today is from Lilis Pantales. Not sure I've got that right, sorry if I've got that wrong. You need a catchy nickname. Hello, Streaky. I have a question. When you use FabFilter MB or C2 compressors, do you ever link stereo or leaving it unlinked most of the time, or do you compress only mono and stereo sometimes? Okay, so do I compress mono or stereo? I never compress mono and stereo. I always compress stereo, but I think what you might be talking about there is MS rather than mono or stereo. So MS meaning mids or sides. I did go through a point where I started to compress the mids, but I don't do that anymore because it just sounds weird and starts sounding a bit phasey and off. Some people do, I just don't. I don't like it. I use MS only free queuing now and again for just doing little tricks. I don't use it for, massively. I think it's just going to ruin the mix that someone spent a lot of time over, and it kind of changes the whole stereo picture and how things are moving. So unless you're in a lot of trouble and you really need to pull a mix out of the bag, it might help you then. But really, no, I don't use it in stereo or mono. Now, do I use a stereo link when I'm mastering a stereo file? So stereo link, for those who don't know, means that you're linking the left with the right so that some settings that you change on the left will change the ones on the right. It's easier to do it. I mean, left and the right, it's okay if it's like a kind of mono-ish track, everything's moving together, then stereo link works well. But what I found is if you stereo link something where the stereo, the panning's kind of different, or there's different sort of things going on, reverbs and stuff, as soon as you put the stereo link in, you're more likely to make it sound a little bit more mono. And that's okay for certain music. Sometimes it's nice to kind of lock things into the center, but a lot of the times I'd rather it was more open and more sort of dynamic between the speakers rather than just holding itself together. But it really is program dependent. You really just have to test it on every track you're working on. I always test stereo link. Does that work better? It's a very subtle kind of stereo image shift, but it can make a difference to hold something together, sort of glue it together a bit more, but sometimes it doesn't work. I would say probably 80% of the time I'm not linking the stereo, so I hope that helps you. So the next one is from Production Rescue. Good sir, did you end up sticking with the Solaris? Okay, so this is to do with the D2A shootout that I've been doing recently. I have got part 2 coming up because I'm just shooting out a load of D2As. I'd like to see if there's one better than what I've got, basically, so then I'll have that one. So it's a question of getting them in, testing them out, and then I thought whilst I'm doing that, I'll do some videos for a DAC shootout. So part 1's up there. And then if you want to know the answers to the DAC shootout, you need to go to streaky.com and sign up to my newsletter, and then I'll put it at the bottom of the newsletter every month so that you can always see what the answer is to that, like kids' puzzles, back of the page stuff. So for the first one, I did the Bacasti, I did a Focusrite, and I did the Prism. I'm still using the Prism, so I don't know what that says. And the Solaris was on the next one, which to me sounded really good. Really good. I've tried to speak to them about getting the head over, which is their D2A8D, just to see if that's still got the same vibe, but he's obviously using the same, I think it's a Quantum, the new one that he's got, that Dave Hills has got. So hopefully I'll get that in, but the Solaris was really good. I'm getting a benchmark in this week to be able to test that out, to see what that sounds like. Benchmark isn't as well known in this country as it used to be, but it's a really high-end sort of hi-fi DAC. So I really want to try out, all kinds of varieties to see what's happening. I might try and get the Berlin as well, which everyone's been asking me about. And yeah, if there's any ones that you'd like me to shoot out, you think I need to listen to, then please put that in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts on what DAC you're using, and if you've tested any out against each other, then great. But for the moment, I'm with the Prism, and yeah, that's it. So I think that's all the questions for this week. If you've got any questions, go to Twitter at #AskStreaky, or put it in the comments below, or in the comments of any of the videos. I always answer everyone's questions or comments, and if they're good, then I'll bring them onto the video on the Friday so that I can share them with everybody else watching. If you like this kind of thing, go to my website, sign up to the newsletter at streaky.com, because I do giveaways, I do discounts, things like that on there that I can't do on YouTube, and it's just for newsletter readers. It's one newsletter a month with kind of tips, tricks, all kinds of stuff on there that you can't normally get. So yeah, streaky.com, and then the newsletter's on the front page. Sign up to that. And if you'd like me to master for you, there is also a link below for me to give you a discount for getting this far in the video. So thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.